Dr. Castle, thank you for
Hello there.
leading the pack here.
Well, good morning. We'll get started. We want to welcome all of you and thank you for coming to what I hope you'll find to be a very interesting discussion and presentation today. And I use the word discussion because at the end we will have Q&A, and we hope you'll feel free to ask questions, but we would ask that you please hold them until the end of the presentation. Also, if I could do so, I'd ask you all to please silence your phones so that none of them ring. if anybody's does, we always like to get a $25 check payable to the University of California at Irvine for their endowment fund. So if you want your phone to ring, it's $25, but it goes for a good cause. So thank you. I would like to first introduce myself. I'm Don Castle, and I, along with 5 other individuals, are senior consultants here for the SBDC at UCI Applied Innovation. And I'd like to tell you just a little bit about our organization. We, through our current organization and also through 2 predecessor organizations, date back to 1990, and we've been helping companies in a myriad of ways for a lot of years. We have 6 consultants, all of whom are angel investors and also have entrepreneurial experience themselves in many instances. We're led by the very nice lady in the back that I'll ask to wave if you'll all take a look, and that's Julie Cranston. And here's some information on contacting Julie. And in addition to that, we have the business cards from the other consultants that are out there at the table. So if any of you are interested in picking those up after you hear all the interesting things we do, we'd be very happy to have further conversations with you. I know we have some of our consultants here with us, and I'd like to ask them to stand up. Richard Krieger is here. If you'll stand up so that people can see you to grab you after the meeting is over. Bill Waldo is here. He's in the back. And there is Bill. Bill's going to have to leave a little bit early to catch an airplane, but he's here at the Cove a great deal, and you'll be able to see and spot him from that time. And Laura Becken is right here also. If she'll stand up, thank you. And the 3 of them and myself are joined by our fellow partners, Steve Mednick and Molly Schmid, as the other 2 individuals. And then we have our marketing director, Hannah Khalid, who's seated outside and is checking all of you in. So that's the SBDC team. Well, what is it we do and how do we do it? Well, the how we do it is a nice story, and that is we do it for free. There is absolutely no cost to entrepreneurs for our working with them and helping them. We take no success fees, no warrants, no stock, no nothing. And in fact, technically, you're not even supposed to buy us lunch. So what we do is we are sponsored and supported by both the Small Business Administration and also UCI here, the Applied Innovations Facility and function, and they support us equally as well. And what we try to do is help entrepreneurs get ready for investors and get ready for future success. We have some companies that are in the startup mode, which is the majority, but we also have a lot of companies that are well into revenue, and some of them even use that P word called profitability sometimes as well. So they cover the entire gamut. We obviously help with investor presentations. We look at term sheets and deal terms and help advise entrepreneurs who are not familiar with that. We look at different types of equity funding vehicles to try to help and discuss that with them. We review debt instruments if that's something that's an opportunity for capital accumulation. We help with sales and marketing strategies, management policies and procedures. Sometimes hiring and staffing issues are new to entrepreneurs, and we need to give help for that. Board of director acquisition and compensation, advisory board creation, governance issues, how to run a board meeting, and some of the other governance-related functions. Strategic and tactical issues. We have a couple of experts in our group that are very knowledgeable about SBIR and STTR functions and opportunities in that regard. We have, through Richard Krieger, expertise in medical products as well, and in some of the life sciences. So we really kind of run the gamut, and plus the fact that all of us have pretty thick Rolodexes, and we can help with clients to be able to direct them to places. So that's what we do. And I mention this not only for the benefit of the entrepreneurs in the room, but for those of you that are investors. You come in contact with companies, and sometimes they might need our services, and we give bargain rate for referral. Instead of being free, we have it extra free. So we would urge you to keep us in mind in that regard as well, if you would do so. Finally, out at the desk, we have a couple of forms that are there for those of you that are entrepreneurs. One is applied innovation clientele intake form, and this intake form is very brief, and if you fill that out and then grab along with it the request for consulting form that is there, you can either scan those and send them back to any of us or to Julie. Her email is here on the screen, or if you wish, you could just scan them or you could send the hard copy as well. But in any event, we want to make it real easy for you if you would like to work with us or talk to us any further. And without any further ado, I'm going to now have great pleasure of introducing a friend of mine as well as a very interesting speaker who's going to, I hope, entertain you with some very good knowledge in his talk today. But Russ is an author of Investing in Patents, everything a startup investor needs to know about patents, and that's sitting at your desk, and that's a complimentary copy for all of you, courtesy of our speaker. And you can see his interview, his bio there, dissatisfied as how he was treated as an inventor himself. He became a patent agent and later a patent attorney after a 13-year career as a mechanical engineer. So he has a master and bachelor's degrees in mechanical engineering from Rensselaer Polytech, and his JD came from Denver University. He's an inventor himself, also an entrepreneur. He's got 50 patents that he's developed in his own name, and he's drafted over 800 patent applications. And in addition, he's an angel investor through the Rocky Mountain Angel Group there in the Denver area. So he brings a lot of valuable insight, and we're delighted to have him here. Russ Kraychek.
Thank you. Well, I'm so glad everybody showed up. Hopefully you got a copy of the book. Feel free to take it home. I shouldn't say most, some of the stuff we're going to talk about is in the book, but there's more detail in here regarding this little gem, which is the 10-point checklist. Should be another copy of this in your book as well. This checklist is how we evaluate inventions before we decide if we're going to get a patent on it or not. And on the back side is a little infographic that you can show to your patent attorney to tell them how to get you a patent in 12 months or less. So they often don't do that. I'm going to talk about this notion of investment-grade patents because, well, I'll get to that in a minute, but most patents are worthless, and I'll give you some data to support that. I'm going to go through a little bit of my background, why Blue Iron, my company, cares about investment-grade patents. We're going to skewer a couple sacred cows in the patent field, and then we're going to go through this checklist that I just showed you. I got out of school, worked at McDonnell Douglas in St. Louis in aerospace, moved to Colorado, did disk drives, test equipment at Hewlett-Packard, and consumer products at Waterpik. And I'd been through the patent process 1 or 2 times before that, came up with this one invention that I wanted to license. And I went to this patent attorney who was on my hockey team, and he wouldn't give me any advice. And the conversation went, well, okay, Bill, I have this great invention. What do I do? Well, I don't know. You could do provisional. You could do a non-provisional. Well, what should I do? Well, some people do a search. I'm like, do you want to do a search? I'm like, well, I don't know. Yeah, let's do a search. So he did a search. The search was terrible. They completely missed the point of novelty. And I went back to him like, Bill, you completely missed it. Do you want me to do it again? Oh, yeah, of course I want you to do it again. I want you to do it right this time. So he billed me twice, and billed me $5,000, and I was furious. I was so angry that I took the patent bar, because all you need is an engineering or science degree. I became a patent agent, and I worked for the guy for 3 years. You know, I knew he was a crook, and but I learned how to do things differently. A lot of times when you have a bad example, you think, I'm going to do it, I'm going to rethink this, I'm going to learn it differently. So I think it taught me a lot working for him. Then I went to law school. Then I opened my own shop as a solo. I did a bunch of work for Microsoft, probably 350 patents for them. One of my Microsoft inventors introduced me to Bill Gates' technical advisor, former technical advisor. At the time, he was the CTO of America Online. And I was pimping this thing called Blue Iron, and he's like, well, it's interesting, except I'm going to do a startup. Do you want to just join me? And I thought, oh, what could possibly go wrong, right? So I joined a startup, a company called Concurrix, and I learned what a 10-to-1 cram down was. If you've, most people don't go over that in the accelerators and incubators. But at Concurrix, we wrote 100 patent applications in 2 years, okay? 100 of them. And there's a big difference between me doing patents for Microsoft and me doing patents where I own them, where I'm a founder, when I have equity in the company, where I'm worried about, can I sell these assets? How do I build them so that I can sell them? What value do they have? Who's going to buy them? What's attractive to them? How do I create actual assets that increase the value of my company, as opposed to when I work at Microsoft? I was outside counsel at Microsoft. They just send me, here's the description, here's the inventor, call them up, write down what they say, send it in. Okay, so that mindset is completely different in-house counsel and outside counsel. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Why is this important to Blue Iron? Blue Iron finances patents for startups. We do patents, no money down. You pay us when the patent issues, and we treat the patents as collateral. And in fact, we'll finance the amount of money, whatever the buyout option is, we'll finance that over 20 years at a 15% rate. But we treat the patents as collateral. If you quit paying, I'm stuck with this piece of paper, so I'm worried about how good is this patent. So my interests are actually aligned with yours. We also insure patents. We do patent enforcement insurance. We do defense insurance. Enforcement meaning we have to go after somebody, a competitor who's encroaching in our space. And we can insure that for about 1% per year of enforcement. So $500,000 of prepaid legal fees cost you about $5,000. The other thing we do is we'll insure loans against patents. So you got a good set of patents, we'll do $2 to $5 million loan, essentially finance your Series A or Series B if the stars align, okay? The stars don't always align, but look at what we do here. Everything we care about is how good are these patents. The only thing we have to have good patents for all this business model to work. And I mentioned in the beginning that 90% of the patents are worthless. This distribution here, the medium or low patents are 92% of the portfolio of these gigantic companies, GE, Vestas, Siemens, and Mitsubishi. This is a study from Wind Energy Patents. These are companies with the most sophisticated strategies, the most sophisticated patent attorneys, infinite budget to get the good stuff. And the best that they're getting are medium, high, or high patents are only 8% of their portfolio. How much worse is it for a startup company? And this is the reason why a lot of big names in the startup community, Brad Feld, for example, say, don't even bother with the patents. They're not going to be worth anything. And conventionally, I believe he's correct, but I think there's a better way, and we'll go through that. So let's talk about a couple myths. And I'm going to make it sound more harsh than it really is, just to get you all riled up because it's the morning here. Myth number one is your patent attorney is in your corner. The attorney-client relationship has two elements. One is this notion of agency. Okay, if I'm your patent attorney and you have a perpetual motion machine and you tell me you want a patent, I'm required to write it down and send it to the patent office, right? And this follows the taxi rule. Taxi rule says the cab has to take the next person in line and drive them wherever they want to go. They don't get to negotiate. Oh, you want to go home? Well, I'd rather go over here. No, you got to do what the client says, and you have to take the clients as they are. But have you ever noticed that when you talk to the patent attorney, it feels like you're asking the barber if you need a haircut? Yeah, you feel the conflict of interest there, but you don't really know why. A lot of people, they'll come to me and I'll quote them a price, and they say, "Oh, the guy down the street will do it cheaper." And you know what? Oh, that was a different story. I was starting the wrong story. I'll get to that. That story was really good too. I want to think about the malpractice liability exposure of me as your attorney. So the other element is agency, but the other is fiduciary responsibility. I'm your fiduciary. Like, you sue me if I give you bad advice. You ask the business consult SBDC guy, they're not a fiduciary. They could tell you something, it might be wrong. You're like, it's the way it is. Your attorney, you don't get that option. And we want it that way, okay? I'm not saying that this should be changed. This is the way life is, and so we got to live with it. But let's look at two scenarios. You come to me and you say, I want to get a patent for my perpetual motion machine, and I say, okay, let's do it, and my advice is incorrect. What's my liability exposure? My liability exposure is the cost of getting a patent, maybe $60,000 bucks. And you know what? I can have plenty of excuses. Well, the examiner wasn't right. We could have spent more money and done this better, or whatever. But imagine you come to me with a perpetual motion machine patent, and I say, no, you should not get a patent on that. And I tell you why. But turns out that the guy down the street gets the patent on the perpetual motion machine, and it works, and it generating electricity forever, infinite. What's my liability exposure if I tell you something that's wrong? It is all your lost profits in every country of the world for the next 20 years. I mean, think about that. I screw up by telling you no, and I have that liability exposure. This is why the attorneys never tell you, never can say no to you. Okay, it's not just in their best interest. There's a liability factor here. So here's your patent attorney. I mean, he's a great-looking guy. He's left-handed. He's brilliant. He's smart. He's everything you want in a great patent attorney. How do you know if he's any good? How do you know? This is where, a lot of people say, well, I get my guy down the street to do it for cheap, right? Well, when I go out for my brain surgery, do I go around and ask for I want that half-price frontal lobotomy. Okay, just give me the cheap one, right? No, nobody ever does that. But people do it with patent attorneys all day long. They'll compare price, like price is a good indicator. Look, I paid $100,000 for this patent, or I paid $20,000. How do you know it's good or bad? You actually don't. I swear to you, I will give you a really good patent and a really terrible patent. I'll hand it to you, and you'll pick the wrong one every time. Because there's so much more to it. There's the technical, legal, you look at it from a litigation standpoint, you look at, the average consumer can't tell. So how do you figure this out? You go to two patent attorneys, two of them. You get a patent from one, a patent from the other, and you take them to the other one. And you sit in front of somebody, and you say, here, look at this patent. Tell me if it's good. Tell me where it's weak. Tell me where it's strong. If I'm gonna buy this patent from somebody, how much should I pay for it? What's the value of it? If I'm going to assert this patent against my competitors, what are its weaknesses? What are its strengths? And ask them questions in a business context. Okay, what does it mean to my business? I'm going to enforce, I'm going to defend, or how are we going to kill it, or whatever. This technique works for anybody where you don't have specific expertise. If you're hiring a coder and you don't write code, take two coders, make them swap code and say, is this done well? Is it maintainable code? Is it well written? Is it understandable? All that kind of stuff. So myth number 2, provisional patent applications are a good thing. I will tell you, not just to be controversial, although I like that, there is absolutely no reason why a startup company would do a provisional patent application. None. There is no scenario where it makes sense. Provisional applications are often done because people want to save, I want to save money, okay? So in the save money mode, you make two errors. One is we put too much information in the patent. The second is you put too little. And they both come back to haunt you. And I'll give you an example, okay? I was doing patents for a startup company that made battery separators. This was a small, thin piece of film that went between the anode and cathode of a lithium-ion battery. And we had a unique way of making the pore structure and all. Our original inventor writes this big patent application, and he puts every thought he had goes into this thing. And he happens to say, you can put fibers in it, okay? Just like one sentence, he mentioned this idea of fibers in the battery separator. Battery separator is made out of like a thermoset, thermoplastic, and when it gets hot, it melts the anoding. Whoa, the anoding. Oh, this is my punchline. Oh, the anode and cathode touch, and what do you get? You get a Tesla, right? You ever seen those things burn? They burn. There's just a lot of energy. It has to go somewhere, so it comes out in heat and flame. So he mentioned that we could put fibers in it, which would prevent this problem. 10 years later, after $10 million of investment, Boeing starts having problems with lithium-ion batteries and fire. And I'm like, oh, this fiber thing, maybe we should try it out. Turns out fibers are really difficult. Too short, they don't do anything. Too long, they turn into a mass of spaghetti. You can't get them to mix well. You got to put sizing on them. When you cast them, they all fall to the bottom. It's like one problem after the next. Took us a year. We figured out how to do it. We had success. All these things are working. We could take a battery and literally punch a nail through it, fully charged. It got no flame. It was exceeding all expectations. We file the patent application, and the examiner says, oh, your guy said you put fibers in it 10 years ago. So he created a ton of he created one sentence of prior art that he didn't that failed on too much information on the disclosure, but it also failed on too little. It didn't explain how to build the thing, and so we could never get patent claims from it. And so we learned what Chapter 12 was about. Chapter 12 bankruptcy, and all the patents were sold. And this was the thing that could have pulled us out, pulled us out of the nosedive and made us go. But the worst part is that your most valuable asset is time. It's not money. Time. A lot of people file that provisional application, wait a year, and then file the non-provisional application. You've wasted time. You've wasted a year before you can enforce that patent. Wasted a year before you have an asset that you can go to the investor and say, this is a real patent. It's not just make-believe. It's a year before you can take a loan against the patent. It's a year before you could use the asset. You've wasted a year. Why? Why doing that? The other thing is, think about the messaging. There's a cost difference between filing a provisional and non-provisional, and it's not much. $150 to file a provisional, about $750 for a non-provisional, it's $600. And you're out pitching for money, and you're saying, oh, Mr. Investor, my patent, my company's worth like $3 million. I have a patent. That's what you're saying out of your mouth. Your actions are saying, I wouldn't even bother to spend $600 lousy dollars on this thing. It wasn't good enough for $600. So if you think about the messaging, just the messaging, file the non-provisional. Like, why? It's $600. Just do it. I'm doing okay on time now. So I've started thinking about patents in this this notion of data-driven. Most patents are prophetic. We look forward to the world with this invention in it, and we're hypothesizing a lot on how this thing's going to work, the benefits, and so on and so forth. I want to do patents that have a reason behind it, where I have data to support it, where it makes sense to make the investment. And there's really two different risks: technology risk and market risk. This is typical business 101. Technology risk: will it work? Can I build it for the price? Can I support it? All that kind of stuff. And the market risk: will anybody buy it? And crazy inventor who calls me on Monday mornings, this is no lie, Monday morning phone calls, they all have this great idea, but they don't have any market traction. They don't have any, how do I know somebody's going to buy it? I don't know, maybe they will, maybe they won't. But we all know that a mediocre product that's well marketed, like the Pet Rock, or, well, I'm showing my age, but that, a mediocre product with really good marketing is so much better than a fantastic product with mediocre marketing. The marketing actually is more important than the technology. The first patent in the portfolio will often not be the best one, but it will be the highest risk one, because we just have nothing to support the business decision. So I'm actually not a fan of doing the first patent. And I've started to think about this in terms of the valuable patents come from when you're solving a problem that nobody's seen before, as opposed to a solution that nobody's seen before. I don't want to patent on this, another version of doing bookbinding or something. Like people have been putting books together for a long time. Another way to do that, not so interesting. But I'll show you, this is one of the most valuable patents on the face of the planet, okay? This is Apple's most valuable patent. It's the one they used to sue Samsung. It's slide to unlock, okay? And think about the process of designing or of patenting in this space. Somebody said, well, I want a phone that has a touch screen. Well, is that really novel? Especially, think back to the George W. Bush administration. And think about, we had phones, they had big screens, and they had, buttons and all that kind of stuff. But is it really that novel to think about a phone with a touch screen? That's what the entrepreneur would come to you and say, oh, yeah, here's my investment, here's my business model. I want a phone with a touch screen. Well, that's not interesting. But think about once you step into the space of phones without buttons. All right? Nobody has thought about phones without buttons before. What's the first thing that you have to do? The first thing you have to do is answer a call, okay? Apple's most valuable patent is about how to answer a call. All right? It's not about some AI blockchain, super complicated PhD level. It's the first problem you're going to have to solve as you move into this new space. Just the first thing. And with this, they control the entire marketplace. They're able to go out and beat up Google by way of Samsung with this patent. I'll give you another example. Anybody remember this product? This one, I'll give you a hint. This one made hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars for Hewlett-Packard. It's a handheld scanner. It's called CapShare. It's another picture of it here. It's a handheld device. You put it on your piece of paper and you slid it up and over and down, and it scanned a piece of paper. All right? It was a disaster from the product standpoint. And somebody had this idea of, oh, let's make a handheld scanner. Okay, well, what happens when we walk into that space? We have two real problems to solve. One is I have to stitch together there's a little sensor underneath here. The scanner sensor goes right here. And that little scanner would sense where the, would create the image. So one of the problems, they had to stitch together all that into a PDF of the problem, of the paper. The second thing is they had to figure out where the thing was moving. So they had these two little sensors right here that were developed at HP Labs, and they were non-contact motion sensors. And this is back in the 1990s, where all the mice had these balls in them. They had those little wheels, and they get all dirty, and they wouldn't work. You had to clean the ball, and you had to smash the thing on the table and make it work and all that. That sensor is right here. It's in the optical mouse. That sensor from this project got turned into the optical mouse and sold billions and billions and billions of optical mice. They made a fortune off of this product. Even though it was a disaster from a commercial standpoint, they really did well with it. And it kind of comes to this notion of, I want to finance the second patent. I want to wait until you really get into that, going down a path where nobody has been before, and start solving real problems. Once you really start solving the hard problem of wherever you think you're going to go, that's when the valuable stuff will come up. The other cool thing is that, that first patent has so much risk associated with it. We're a little bit further down the risk profile. We have some confidence that this is going to be better. We have some confidence that, other people are going to follow us. We have some market validation, hopefully. So I got time for more stories, don't I? So we're gonna start looking at more examples here in a bit. More nuts and bolts examples. I was at Microsoft one time doing an invention disclosure, and I show up and I set up my little interview camera, and we're talking at the conference room, and I'm asking the guy, he's telling me about his product. Oh, could it work on a cell phone? Could it work on how would it work in cloud? And I'm just kind of poking and prodding, and not minding just sitting there taking notes, throwing out these questions. I don't realize that he's getting really angry at me, and he kind of stopped, and I looked up, and I was like, "What?" And he's like, "That is not the product we're shipping." And he was just furious. And I sat there for a second, and I said, "I don't care what your product is. I am not trying to describe your product." I'm working for Microsoft at the time. I tell them, I am trying to describe Google's product. Not only that, I'm trying to describe Google's product 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I'm trying to think about this thing in a whole bunch of different contexts than you're stuck with. The entrepreneurs, they live in, they work in this a bubble. And I don't mean that in a negative sense, but their scope of vision is focused on what they're doing, and they often can't look up and see what else is going on. I'm trying to create an asset that's going to be around for 20 years, and you're shipping a product that has a 2-year life cycle. So, so let's look at some more detail. Okay, so this is the invention, the checklist. You've got a copy of it. There's another version of it in the appendix of the book as well. If you want a copy, send me an email. I'll send you a PDF. You can print as many as you want. The checklist is good because it starts to standardize how we make decisions, okay? Instead of some gut instinct, oh, that's a really good idea, let's think about it in an objective, non-emotional way. Take the stress off of the decision to make this investment or not. Reduce the risk of these patents. Make sure that the investment is going to go well. And I was speaking with somebody earlier that how much emotion tends to get involved with patents. For a lot of inventors, and I'll tell you myself included, getting a patent was a big deal. You know, like my 7th grade teacher told me I'd never amount to anything, and so getting a patent is a way to validate my existence on the face of the earth kind of thing, okay? It's not, oh, that's really cool. I mean, for some people, that emotion runs very, very deep, and it's hard to extract that from, you know, reality. So this gives us an objective way to think about this. You know, I went to law school, so I got disclaimers, you know, this isn't the end-all, be-all, use your best judgment, all that kind of thing. If anybody has ever wanted to be an inventor, get this book. It's called Triage, T-R-I-Z. There's a Russian fellow named G.S. Altshuler who created a system of inventing called TRIAGE, and it's this acronym for this long Russian name. This book has all kinds of different techniques for inventing, and if it sounds weird to you that you could sit down and just, okay, I'm going to be an inventor today, and I'm going to systematically invent something. If that sounds weird, it actually works. Okay, it's pretty cool. So we're going to talk about the first part of the checklist. I'm going to get rid of this guy. The first part of the checklist is novelty. Patents have to be new. No, never been done before. And so novelty is somewhat of a binary thing. It's either new or it's not. But we can actually scale it. Obvious routine solution, level 1. Solution not well known in the industry, requires creative thinking. Level 3 applies engineering knowledge from other industries. Level 4, improvement uses science that is new to the industry or technology. And number 5, new scientific phenomena are applied. And what I want to show you is the distribution here. This distribution actually came from the guy who did trees, G.S. Altshuler. He went through about 10,000 patents and classified them using this scale. And what I want to show you is that over 75% of the patents are level 1, level 2, okay? Less than 1% are these super, super good level 5 patents. And use this as a yardstick. The inventions you come up with are going to have this distribution. The inventions your team come up with are going to have this distribution. Expect to have this, okay? And if you're not, you know, go back and make sure that your classifications are correct. And using this scale, if I took Apple's slide to unlock, I'd probably classify it as a level 2 invention. Think about that. The most valuable patent in the world is it just happens to be a level 2 invention. Edison's light bulb, probably classify it maybe as a level 3, applies engineering knowledge from other industries. And maybe the little sensor, the non-contact sensor that HP talked about, or they talked about with HP, that might be a level 4 invention. And I'll tell you, I had never seen a level 5 patent until yesterday. With you guys, the concept of how you guys were separating cells uses a new scientific phenomenon nobody's ever seen before. And congratulations on that. So the second factor in the checklist is this notion of detectability. Detectability can kill the thing outright. If your patent is not detectable, it's not not just worthless, it's worse than worthless, okay? If it's not detectable, keep it as a trade secret. I don't care what your investor says. If your investor says, oh, I want a patent, no, this is better left as a trade secret. Explain to them that it's impossible to detect. But when we do patents, there's this trade-off, okay? The trade-off with the patents are you give the public your trade secret. You explain to them how to use your invention, all your data supports it and all that. And in exchange, the sovereign, the government, the patent office, the citizens grant you this little right. And it's to encourage you to tell everybody what your trade secret is so other people can build on that, right? So you want to say, is this a good bargain? Am I getting out what I put in? So all my examples are from the 90s. Tropicana gets a patent on orange juice. But let me kind of set the stage. Back in the day, all orange juice was from concentrate. As soon as it's harvested, they squeeze it, they suck the water out of it, and they got concentrate, and then they store it and reconstitute it and put it in bottles and sell it. So everything was concentrate. And this notion of not for concentrate or fresh squeezed orange juice just didn't exist. And so Tropicana started working on this. And what they did is they analyzed the growing cycles, the sugar content, and so on, and they developed this way of mixing and matching different varieties of oranges at different times, at different sugar level, to get a constant tasting orange juice throughout the whole season. And they were this is the Tropicana Pure Premium orange juice that you've seen on the store shelves. This category just dominates the market. It really works, okay? It was a great idea. This is what they had in their patent application. All this data from all these different varieties and the sugar content bricks and the bricks to acid ratio, the color number. They had all this data they collected. It looked to me like they had at least 2 years worth of data to support all this, and they showed how they did the blending and all. They explained all this stuff, okay? And this is what they got. This is the claim that came out of it, okay? It says, at least 1% by weight of a stored orange juice and up to 99% of a very early season fresh orange juice. And I ask you, could you go to the supermarket, get the competitor's product, bring it to the lab with all the sophisticated equipment in the world, and isolate that 1% of stored orange juice? Could I ever do that? The answer is no. No way. But think about this. This is one of the most sophisticated companies in the world. And they got a patent that explained all their R&D, their most secret, most valuable trade secrets. They documented, put in a patent application, got it published, spent all the money, and what did they do? They gave instead of having a 2-year head start on all their competition, they gave it away for free. This is a sophisticated company. How many times does a startup company do this? It happens all the time. It happens because somebody says, I want a patent. Okay, whatever, you want a patent, that's your problem. I'm getting you a patent. This is what comes out of at the other end of the sausage making machine, and you're, and was this a good bargain? No. It was terrible. But this happens all the time. So really be on the lookout for detectability. And so I get level five different levels of detectability. We really want it to be so good that they're saying in their advertisement, oh yeah, this has that one feature. We really want it to be the king of the hill of detectability. We don't want to have to, buy that clock or buy that chip and slice it off and figure out, rewire all the whole thing and figure out if our little clock circuit is in there. okay? We want it detectable. Software patents are terrible this way. Algorithms on some AI blockchain nonsense, completely undetectable. I could never tell that it's running in, some computer somewhere. I can never tell. So why would I tell the world about it? Should be a trade secret. What's detectable is stuff on a UI, slide to unlock. We can always tell that that's there. The software patents that are valuable capture a commercial benefit. It captures the reason why your customer bought that thing. This is the benefit they get out of it. That's what we want to capture in the claims. Actor analysis is kind of hard to. It doesn't make sense unless we explain it a little bit. What I'm talking about on actor analysis is who infringes and where do they infringe, okay? So I'll give you an example. This is a company from Loveland, Colorado, Decibels. They make a heat moldable earplug. These two orange pieces you put in boiling water, you get them all nice and soft, and you push them in your ear and you pop that little black thing in, and you got a instantly moldable earphone, or in this case, an earplug. His first patent application said exactly that. The claim was, heat the thing up, put it in my ear, pop the black thing in. Who does that? Who does that method? It's my customer. My customer heats it up. My customer puts it in here. My customer puts that. Can I sue my customer? No. What am I going to sue him for? That one little bit of infringement is probably worth, if I licensed it out, it's probably worth a nickel or a quarter. I can't sue anybody. I can't even send them a letter for a quarter. So I can't enforce that because it's directed to the wrong actor. And also, when does infringement occur? Does it incur when the manufacturer built the thing? No. When they imported it into the US? No. When it was on the store shelf? No. When somebody bought it? No. It's when after all that, they actually bring it home, then they infringe. We don't want that. What we really want is, and this is what he did, is he changed the patent to be a piece of plastic that gets soft at this temperature, gets warm at this temperature, has this little black thing you pop in. And so he started talking about it in a device. It's a device claim, and those tend to be super valuable. Method claims like manufacturing methods are notorious. They're undetectable for one thing, because my competitor is doing it in a locked factory somewhere. And if I sue them, if I figure it out and I sue them and say, stop doing my method, they just pack up and they go across the border to Mexico, Canada, wherever I don't have a patent, and they do it again. And I can never say no to them. I can never stop them. So on the list of what we want to see device, device, device. And then methods are way down here, okay, in terms of value. There's always cases where, where this doesn't work perfectly well, but we got something we can use. So, so the next step on the checklist is this notion of design around. I always want to think about what are the alternatives to your invention. What happens if we don't have, what's the world before your invention and what's the world after? What a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot of people, I have heard of people creating a set of claims for this super valuable patent and then taking another group of engineers, putting them in another conference room and saying, hey, what if our competitor had this locked down? How would we get around it? What would you guys do? And then just let them roll and see what, if it came up that we really didn't have any other way to get around this, that slide to unlock was like the only way we could get into this space, well then that tells us that that patent is going to be valuable. And as always, we want to measure the differences of performance and really, at the end all, is economic differences are the most important factors. So we go through, we do that design around analysis, we measure the performance value. I'm just kind of, we'll get to questions here pretty quickly. I want to look at internal and external business value. I want to look at the patents in terms of how it works in our business, how important are they? And we want to look at how important are these patents to competitors. So the internal product fit, the further we are towards commercialization, the less risk we have on the patent. You know, we've built the prototype, we've got that figured out, we got it working, and there's less risk on our part, but it also shows that we've invested money into that as well. So we like the closer it is to shipping. We also like how important it is to our core product. If it's the core to what we're doing, we'll just put a bunch of patents on there just as a hedge. If it's, who gets paid 25 bucks? Anyway, Don, you get a $25 donation here somewhere. I don't know where it is. Nobody's fessing up. Oh, no. We also want to think about patents in relationship to our competitors. When I was at the startup company out in Seattle, all I did was think about who is going to buy this asset and where does it fit in their space. So I do patent searches on our competitors to see where they had assets and where not. And if I can get something in between somewhere that they had, I have something that shows promise for value, okay? At the end of the day, all these rating things are guesses. This is trying to weed out the good from the bad. But at the end of the day, if the market, if you sell product that has this feature, the patent has real value. You can think about patents in terms of they're really a call option on a technology, 20-year call option. And when we first write the patent, that call option is out of the money. We're hoping that the market will come to us and that everybody will see the same vision that we have and things will be great. When we're actually in production, we're shipping product and there's a competitive, people are competing against us in this space, that call option goes in the money. And now the value is based on how much can we actually license to people, how much can we sue people. I use that flippantly, and I don't mean it in a negative way, but if I can litigate against somebody and win, that's the power of the lever that I have. We spoke about the outbound licensing that HP did with their sensor. One thing I should mention is standards essential patents are the absolute holy grail of patents. Okay, patents that define Wi-Fi, define Bluetooth, MPEG, these kind of industry standards are worth money. And I'll tell one quick story. So Microsoft acquired Nokia, right? And Microsoft, like most big companies, had this plan where they paid the inventor $100 for submitting an invention disclosure and $1,000 on the patent issues and all that, and they give out a little cube with their name on it and all that. Nokia had a similar thing. So, meshing those two together were kind of nice, except for Nokia. Nokia would give an inventor, if their patent was a standard essential patent, if it wound up in some, IEEE standard, Nokia would pay $250,000, okay, $250,000. And I'm friends with all these people in the patent group, and they were petrified that the inventors in old Microsoft would find out that these Nokia guys were getting $250,000 for standard essential patent. They were terrified that news would get out, and there'd be a revolt amongst all their inventors for that. Anyway, that's the value that Nokia put on standard essential patents. Oh, we hit the end. So that's the quick version of what's in the book. And any questions? Ask me a hard one.
We'll get to that in just a second.
Okay.
And I'll kind of help field that. We are recording this, so we'd like, when you do the Q&A, if you'll put your hand up, we have Hannah and Julie will be monitoring the room with microphones, and so if you'd speak into that, particularly because people in the front sometimes ask questions and people in the back can't hear it. When I made my introductory comments, I neglected to thank one other group that's very, very important, and their names are all featured up there, and those are our sponsors, and we want to particularly single out the Irvine Chamber of Commerce and Trotman Sanders. Trotman has a table set up outside here, and we very much appreciate the support that both of them give us. Also, I'd like to call your attention to some upcoming events. They're listed up there. We have a little sheet that's out at the table if you'd like to pick it up to consider coming to some of these. Those of you that are entrepreneurs, I think will find the series that we put together. We really designed this around trying to help you understand aspects of your business in greater detail, so we hope you'll consider coming to those, and you can register those accordingly. So hope to see you at them. Alrighty, questions. Who's got the first one? That's the most important, because once we get that first question, then we really kind of opens up the bar. Gerard?
So,
Let us get you a mic.
yeah, I'm sorry. Gerard Miller, Local Angel. So if one of the companies that we as angels are invested in is sort of heading towards Series A, and we basically say, look, we've got our questions about the IP, and we walk over to you, where can value be added before this would go? I mean, the question is, can you salvage somebody who's messed it up? And what are the remedies that you might be able to interject, once the horse is out of the barn, if you will? So help us with that.
So can things be salvaged? Yeah. And the truth is nobody does this well, okay? So I'm not up here telling you that I have, I've come down from the mount with the tablets. I don't have that. What we can do is look at what we have to work with, and a lot of times you can add stuff to an existing patent application if something's still pending. We can salvage things. Sometimes you look at them and say, it's better just to abandon them. That one's not working. Just let's move on to something else. I'm of the opinion that the good inventions are yet to come. The better inventions are yet to come. And so as long as the startup company didn't get talked into this big kitchen sink patent application where they just put stuff and stuff and stuff and they try to harvest it afterwards, I think that's a mess. Because we don't know I don't write patent applications that way. I actually spend more time writing the claims than I do writing the rest of the patent application. I'm trying to figure out what is the point of novelty. Does that point of novelty have business value? And then we're comfortable with that. We search it so we know, all right, we're comfortable that we think we're going to get these claims. And then we write the patent to support that. So, that's the tactic that I like to take. I'm not, everybody does it differently. But you can salvage this stuff. And, to your point of looking at other people's patent applications, I do that all the time. And I want to let everybody pick up the phone and call me. I have this I don't know, it's a terrible thing, but I'll talk to anybody. I'll talk to anybody for an hour, 2 hours, or whatever. But I'll look at, people call, we'll look at their patents, see if we like them, what do we like, and I'll tell you, I like this, I don't like this, I'd steer it this way or whatever. I'm happy to look at that stuff, and, but yeah, you can usually salvage stuff. I didn't mention this, but I really wanted to, that this whole thing you know, the whole idea of this checklist and all is that you have to take ownership of this process. You, the entrepreneur, have to own this because your patent attorney's not going to do it for you. Outside counsel cannot do it for you. It's not that they're incapable. It's not that they don't want to. It's just that that's the way it works is you're the one that's ultimately responsible. So you need these kind of checklists, these tools to figure that out. And, you know, somebody to help steer you through that. Did I over-answer that one?
So there's almost like a catch-22 here where you have an entrepreneur who wants to produce a product and he or she is pretty sure that these are going to be low-level patents, especially the very first one. Mm-hmm. And so the claims would be so narrow that it's almost a worthless patent, but you have to get a patent in order for people to invest. At least that's the what entrepreneurs are told. So you have to get a patent, but and so you'll put together some sort of patent. Now, do investors, in the pitch talks and whatever, really then delve into that patent to see if it is really something of worth, or it's like it's not really worth much of anything? So it's almost like, and then should I even write that patent? And if I don't write that patent, will I not get any money? So it's
I don't know. For those of you who are investors in the room, have you ever read the patents of a company you invested in? Have you? Okay, 1, 2. Have you analyzed the claims to see if they're broad or narrow or directed the right? There's a certain level of expertise it takes for the investors to do that. And I've seen a lot of investors who just, oh, you have a patent, oh, we're good. And they move on. And then they ask, I actually had guys ask me to look at this one company's patent. And it was no different than that Tropicana patent. It gave away the entire thing. I'm like, abandon this thing as fast as possible. Like, get rid of it. Make sure it never gets published. Don't do this one. It kills your business. And they're all good with it. They all went ahead and they all put money in, and company's plodding along. Like, all right. It just eroded one of their competitive advantages. To the investors, they made the investment. I didn't. So
we got a question in the back?
Yeah.
I like your. Someone else is first. I'll follow like this. 4 patents, first one and 3 continuations. We're
Good.
in the middle of a new one. Okay. We have Medicare reimbursement codes. We have actually side-by-side data.
Woohoo.
So it's all looking good.
Yep.
Okay. Detectability, if you're using it and I'm standing over there and watching you, I can see that you're using
Good.
our patents, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm getting a glow going on over here.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to I have a code there back in Ohio. But the first 4 expire 2024. So their lifetime is
Near the end.
rating.
Yep.
The second layer of patents, which I really liked your phrase where you said it's solving a problem we learned, and that's what this new
Mm-hmm.
package is, which should give us a new 20-year life expectancy, international, all the other stuff.
Yep.
How do I value that?
How much competition do you have?
There's a handful of people out there.
Is anybody infringing the patents?
No, we're not out there yet.
Okay.
So we're inches away. We'll do a 510K. We already have a CMO that can manufacture it, et cetera. And so from the getting it into the market, that's kind of the easy way. We're also, I'll say, an order of magnitude smaller than everybody else. So yeah, they can go to the hospitals. We can go to the home. Okay. And so we have all these forces in our favor, especially the whole market of medical treatment right now is moving towards the home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the question is, the value of this first 4 patents expiring, let's say 6 years from now, how do we value that, or is it devalued, or?
You're past the peak. The patents tend to peak out at value about year 12, and then the rest is just kind of trailing off. If somebody infringed today, we could only prevent them from from competing with us for 4 years.
Right.
It is what it is. You know, it has some inherent value. The fact that these patents have been around and nobody's infringing them right now, you know, I'd love to see evidence of use where somebody's infringing, and then I could put a value based on how much could I license to them. So.
Allow me to add one sentence.
Okay.
Because I know about FDA, the 510K. They have no value.
Let's get a mic too.
Yeah.
They have no value until somebody infringes, as he says. And as long as you don't have the 510K, or rather said the FDA approval, you're, I think, safe, because nobody wants to invest the money. Remember, an FDA approval might take between 3 to 8 years.
I know FDA 510K will be 90 days earliest. I've done way too many of them for 4 years working at
big companies around here. So for the PMA side, you're absolutely right. 510K should be 90 days at the max, and our subsequent ones will be 30 days. There'll be specials. So the 510K, we've already.
So there's somebody who has an equivalent product out
Oh,
there.
yeah.
510K.
Oh, yeah.
So you're okay on that.
Yeah.
And they haven't infringed it. So
Yeah.
there is a value if you look at the competitors.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can get a value based upon your competitor.
Okay, and even though I've got this expiration date that's happening kind of soon, okay, it's not zero value.
The patent valuation is almost, you know, it's almost like rolling dice.
Absolutely.
It's not rolling dice. It's picking the number I want it to be, and I can justify it. I can justify, you have no evidence to use, there's no competition, patent's not worth anything, nobody's infringing. Or I could say, well, this thing really is, you know, adds this much value to the potential product, and, you know, you're going to generate $1 billion of revenue. It's, you know, the patent's worth some percentage of that. You know, I can forecast and make it look good, or I can, you know, it's really science is not, it's more art than science. So.
We've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
Yeah, hi. You talked about provisional patents, or
Yeah, I hope somebody was
they're
gonna,
dicey, right? Or
yeah,
dicey.
Somebody's got a big.
And
opinion
you
on
said that the difference between the application cost is $600.
Correct.
But of course, if I go to non-provisional, the costs are high. I mean, you know, the tens of thousands of dollars to get the right claims and all of that, to do it right. So is there, you know, ever a case to do a provisional to, you know, raise money or prepare yourself to spend the extra money for the non-provisional?
So, you know, my heartache with provisionals is that people think they're protected when they're not. And they make business decisions based on, oh, I am protected, and so I'm going to go invest a bunch of money, I'm going to tell my, you know, I'm going to collect money from other people. You know, is it on false pretenses because I really have a 2-page provisional here that doesn't protect me at all? You know, I don't like any of that. I just want them to spend the money. Just do it right if you're going to file it, and file the thing. The real reason for the provisional is it delays the start of the patent application. And this is a construct that was created for big pharma. So patent's good for 20 years. If we wait a year and then we actually start convert it to a non-provisional a year later, I get another year of patent term. And for pharma, they make all their money on the year 20, year 21, you know, and so they need that and they like that. But for startup company, we're trying to get to year 2, not year 20.
Okay. You're saying pharma would construct a very strong provisional, so that way
you should
they're
always
protected.
you get credit for what you put. You get credit for what you send to the patent office. So if I send just a page and send it to the patent, I get a provisional patent application. I go tell my investors, I got patent pending. I put it on my advertising, all that, and it's true you do, but you have zero protection because it's not going to support real claims. So a year later, I'm going to put 20 pages in, and I really should have put that 20 pages in today, filed the thing, and if you're going to do it, just do it, and do it well.
I have 2 comments on your presentation.
Yes.
The first is it is excellent, of great value
thank
to
you.
an inventor, and I would like to explain why it is so. What you pointed out is it's not in the text of the law. For example, detectable is not in the text of the law. So an inventor who reads the text of the law says, okay, novel, etc., etc.,
Right.
will not think about detectable, and you make that point, and there are several other points in your presentation which also are not in the text of the law. And all the points that you made which are not in the text of the law are extremely valuable. So that, I think,
thank you.
Congratulations on that. The second point, though, is that orange juice example.
Mm-hmm.
Why would the patent office even grant a patent just mixing, like mixing food, mixing perfume? You can't get a patent just because, oh, well, I mix it so that it tastes better or it smells better. Why would the patent office even grant a patent for that? So maybe could you come up with an example for detectability that does not use the
No,
Tropicana orange
that is a
juice?
completely legitimate invention.
Right.
They did something, they made a product that nobody had ever made before. It's not just orange juice from a tree. It's orange juice that was blended to have a specific flavor profile. And over time, they have, this set of oranges, this variety ripens at one time, this variety ripens at the next time, this variety, and we're going to mix and match these all through the season to get a perfectly consistent orange juice. It's a brilliant invention, okay? The fact that it's orange juice, people get, how could you possibly get a patent on orange juice? It's a legitimate invention. It's no different than anything else.
Well, I can see that point, but like a perfume, right? You mix a perfume, you can't get a patent on a perfume.
Well, you can, but why would you? There's 100 other perfumes, and why would you tell everybody your exact little, why would you do it? It's better left as a trade secret. The most famous trade secret is the formula for Coke, Coca-Cola.
Right.
They could have gotten a patent on it, which would have lasted 20 years, or they could get a trade secret on it and it lasts forever. And nobody can deconstruct what is really in Coke.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe somebody can, I don't know.
Question here. Go ahead.
Just
Go ahead.
to answer, there is a possibility to find out what's in it, but the ingredient, one of the ingredients is owned by Coca-Cola and you can't get it. That makes the difference between any Coke and that Coca-Cola,
Really?
really.
Well, learn something new every day. Thank you, that's it.
We have a question over here. Go ahead.
Sure.
Hi, I just want to commend you for giving a totally new perspective on patents from the
Thank you.
commercial market perspective. It has never done before. And since we have investors here, could you talk about a little bit about patent trolls? And it is a clear and present danger. It happened to one of my clients recently, and someone who had already not patent but trademarks, and the danger of infringing on a trademark can be punished up to capital punishment, whereas if you infringe on a patent, there's no such severe punishment. Thank you.
Right, yeah, it's just monetary damages. People talk, patent troll is kind of the derogatory name for all of you, for people who invent stuff, and for whatever reason, we can't get it to market, and we still own these patents, but big company wants to enforce it. And so big company labels you as patent troll because you invented something that they want to steal. And so I don't really have, I love patent trolls. They're great. No, they're part of the secondary market. And they're part of you as a startup entrepreneur or as an investor getting your money back. You guys put a lot of thought and sweat and tears into making this thing work, and big company is going to rip you off. And the way you enforce that is you go to somebody who's willing to take the risk to enforce that. Of course, I mean, not to be all commercial, but we sell insurance that does that. We've actually had an insured who was sued by a patent troll. We said, your patent's invalid. The insurance company actually paid to go all the way up to the Supreme Court and all the way back down, and the startup company lived to be sold for $300 million after that. So, I don't. Anyway, I love the trolls, by the way. I just think they're part of the ecosystem. They're just they're unfortunate name. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Joe Librant. This was a great presentation. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
My partners and I have one patent. We're working on a second one. We think that they are quite marketable, but we're not a manufacturing company. I was wondering, like, what's the best way for us to get a manufacturing company to license our patents?
The best way to do it is to bring the product to market and show that that somebody wants to buy it. What you're asking when you ask somebody to take a license is, hey, I want you to take the risk. I want you to invest a lot of money, make this commercializable, do high volume tooling, whatever you have to do. I want you to take the risk on branding the thing, educating the consumers, getting them excited about it. I want you to take the risk of building inventory, figuring out distribution, putting it in packaging, getting store shelves, and then we'll make money. So you're asking them to take a very big burden, one that you are saying to them, I don't want to take. But what I would challenge you is build it even on a small scale. Try to move some of this, try to build the stuff even at a prototype level, show that there's market interest. At the end of the day, nobody cares about the invention. People care that somebody wants to buy this thing. And that's the missing component that you need to show in your product or in your business. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good.
Do we have any final questions? That's just a few more minutes full.
One other thing I'll mention while you're moving the microphone around, I'm here all day. I have nothing planned for the afternoon. If anybody wants to meet, tip your waitress. Yeah, it was.
Hi. I just wanted to say I thought that one of the best points that you brought out was the difference between the method and the
device,
and
the product, yes.
Because I think too many people write it as method instead of writing it as device. It's just a matter of shifting the perspective in a lot of cases.
Do you know why they do that? It's because it's easier for the patent attorney.
Yeah, and
because you're asking for that plaque, and it's easier for the patent attorney to give you a plaque.
Yeah, I thought that was really a key delineator of what you were talking about. I do push back though on the provisionals.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because I think that provisionals have a very important place as you're developing something. When you said that usually the thing that becomes the most valuable is not the thing you start with. To me, that's what you're working on during that year. But to your point, if you're filing one page, I mean, if you do anything half-assed, it's not going to be worth anything.
Correct.
So the idea that you have to do a really good job of really elucidating what you're working on in that provisional, but that year is where you find that key item that when you do your final patent filing, then you can start doing the patent filing and you can do the continuation patents on other pieces that developed during that year.
So you're talking about filing one application, provisional, and then we're going to add more material as we learn over the next year. We could file it as a non-provisional and then add the material at any time, at 3 months, at 9 months, at 24 months, and we call it a continuation in part.
But then you're also
the price difference is $600.
But then you're also running the risk of public disclosures and stuff during that time, where it may not be robust enough to really have a good non-provisional, but you can have your provisional in place covering the concepts so that it's basically your marker saying I have the concepts at this point, and then when you get that filing at the end of the year. Now, granted, you can't go after anybody during that year because you're just pending.
So what you did is, in my example, where my inventor said you could put fibers in this product, he did that really early on, and he thought he was covered, and he wasn't. But it created prior art that now kills you a year later. You put the line in the sand that you owned the invention at that time because that's when you described it. And now you've waited a year and told people how it works. And if you disclosed it anywhere in that 1 year period, you've lost all your international rights. If you disclosed it before your provisional, you get 1 year from that point, and that point might wind up in between your two, your provisional, non-provisional, and you lose all your rights, US and foreign. Well, there's a lot of risk that goes on with provisional, okay? It's actually far more complicated. Does that help?
Russ will be here if you want to.
Yeah, we could argue. I'm happy to go after this all year.
I'll just join that comment,
Uh-huh.
actually. I think what you are saying that assuming that you have all the resources that you need to file a utility application versus a provisional, you are, of course, going to file a utility regular application. I think that's absolutely correct. That's one thing that you are saying. That is, if I can file a utility, why should I file a provisional? So that's absolutely correct. But I think, and also you are saying two-page provisional is worthless. And I think that is also correct. But I think what she's alluding to, which many startups are finding themselves in a situation like that, that yes, $600 difference in the application fees, but that is not the case in the fees that you pay for an attorney. In other words, there's a big difference filing a provisional versus a utility.
Correct.
So if I'm a startup company on a string budget, I am going to file a provisional. I'm not going to file a one-page, two-page, as you said, half, I won't say that word. Of course, I mean, there are good provisionals, there are bad provisionals. But the important thing is that you put a stake on the ground. You have a date of priority, which is very valuable. I mean, if you cannot afford to file a utility application, what are you going to do? Not file anything? You are going to file a good provisional. You are going to pay $150. You are going to pay $500 to a patent agent, and you are going to file a provisional. So that's one point. The second thing is you rightfully also mentioned SEPs, Standard Essential Patents, right? And you also mentioned that, for instance, pharma values provisional applications.
Yes.
But what I like to also point out, the SEP world, provisionals are very, very critical mechanisms. The reason is the following. SEP, Standard Essential Patents. So the standard process goes on for a couple of years. So at every meeting, engineers, researchers go to the meeting and present their ideas. And what do they do before they go to the meeting? They file provisionals, right? So essentially, what I like to say, good provisionals are not worthless.
They're not, fine, they're not, a well-written provisional is not worthless, it's great. It just wastes a year. It wastes a year of a startup's time. You know, it wastes a year before you can go back to the investor and say.
The alternative is you have no protection, no priority.
Yeah, and one of the things, you know, peace on it. Peace on that.
Sir, in the interest of time, let me make two suggestions. Let Russ wind it up. And secondly, please come up and talk to him further, which you're welcome to do. He's going to be here, and we'd love to have, so we're not trying to cut off any. If you want to gather around to listen, you're welcome to do so.
Absolutely.
So here's the quick answer. I finance patents. I will pay all the patent costs for a startup company as part of my investment. I am willing to sit on the sidelines and say, you know what, I don't want to file that first one. I want part of my investment thesis. When I'm putting money on the table, I will say, let's not file that one, and I want to wait and see what you come up with later. Okay, so my investment thesis is, if we're going to do a first one, we're going to do really small, narrow, super focused. Don't make a mess for me to clean up later. But I'm willing to let that first one go. I'm actually willing to let that one be abandoned in favor of the next one in most cases. So I want to stay away from them. Anyway.
I apologize because I know we've got a couple other questions, but we have kind of come to the end of the time, and I don't want to hold anyone needlessly, but you're welcome to come up and to continue the dialogue and discussion. Also, any of you sitting in the back that did not get a copy of the book, we have some up here, so if you didn't get one, please come up. You're welcome to have that. Join me in thanking Russ for a very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you.